You're listening to Chicago Stories, a new podcast from City Hall featuring the stories of everyday Chicagoans as told to Mayor Rahm Emanuel.
This is Mayor Rahm Emanuel with Chicago Stories. I'm joined today by a good friend until we get to football, AJ Mohammed, who is a Iraqi war veteran. We met at Walter Reed Hospital and also is here in Chicago for the Warrior Games. Chicago is the first city that the Warrior Games are being hosted, not on a military base. And they're going to be held at Soldier Field, and we're going to get to that a little later. AJ, thanks for joining us.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Everything good?
Yeah, doing great. Excited.
Yeah.
Ready to compete.
Why don't you tell everybody what your sport is and your competition, a little about the Warrior Games. Some of us know, but I'm not sure everybody really knows what the Warrior Games are.
The Warrior Games is comprised of DoD military athletes who are wounded, ill, or injured. Each branch of the service has their own particular team, which will compete together in Paralympic type sports. Mm-hmm. And it's been a really great experience for me, being back on a team and the camaraderie and, competing against other service members. Mm-hmm. It's been real fun. For me, I will be competing in archery, cycling, shot put, and discus.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's gonna be a lot of fun because I'm visually impaired, so I'll be shooting archery blindfolded, shot put and discus blindfolded, and riding a tandem cycle.
Not many things leave me speechless. That did it, man. Congratulations. Now did you do any of those sports before Iraq?
No.
No?
No, not at all.
Okay. And then, what was the transition to picking them up?
It was very easy. With the first sports camp I went to, they just had me try everything to see how I felt. And it turned out I was a pretty good cyclist. An amazing shot in archery, even though I can't see the target. And track and field, I started picking those up because I wanted to try that, see how I was doing, and it actually turned out pretty well for me.
That's great. So, also for everybody, this is not only the first time the Warrior Games are held off a base. I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's the first time Australia veterans and UK veterans are joining us.
UK's been with us for a few times.
Oh, they have. So
yes.
Okay.
But Australia, I think, is.
So that's the first time they've kind of come in on the game.
Correct.
It's going to be great, I think, for the athletes, the fans, and for the city. I think it's special. So tell a little, give people some background of your situation, what happened in Iraq, how that happened. And then I think it'd be helpful for everybody to transition to kind of dealing with, obviously not only the physical impairment, but then how you made the transition to decide that's not going to define you. I think that really be, you and I have talked about this, but why don't you tell people a little about it?
In 2004, I suffered combat-related injuries while on patrol, operating in the Middle East. I suffered visual impairment, hearing loss, traumatic brain injury, spinal cord injury, and suffered, obviously, PTSD coming back with the trauma. And for the years after, with all the surgeries, therapies, appointments, it was difficult to basically find out who I was and how I am going to transition into a non-military life. I felt a lot of grief, a little depression because of my loss for people I serve with, and also for my loss with being on a team with the military, having the brotherhood that I've developed throughout my career in there. And throughout the years after that, it was a lot of hardships, bumpy roads. Coming to closer to 2014, I decided that my life's got to change. So I talked to my doctor about the medications I'm on. I got extremely overweight due to the medications, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and also developing diabetes, pre-diabetes. So that hit me pretty hard, like really hard. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm still a young guy, and this is going to be my life. And I talked to the doctor, and he gave me an ultimatum: start losing weight, start working out. And we developed a plan for pain management to get me some off the narcotics and other treatments. And I started that for a year, and Navy Safe Harbor program, they literally saved my life. They sent out an email and offered an invite to me to go to one of their camps, try it out. And that literally changed my whole course into wanting to be part of a team and to actually feeling human again. And I found sports that I never thought I could do or want to do. Being visually impaired, it seems like, oh, I'm blind or I can't see, so I can't bike, I can't do archery, I can't run track. But being with the adaptive program, they find a way. No matter what your injuries are, my teammates, no matter what they got struggling with, they find a way.
I had like a ton of questions, so I apologize if I'm doing them in rapid fire. So, because I once was in the hospital for 7 weeks and nearly died, and I try to explain this to people, and I think you just kind of touched on it. There's like a moment, it's not like the clouds open up, the sun comes down, you hear Beethoven's Ninth in the background. But I was like, I was kind of, my dad used to say I would do the minimum to get the maximum. I never really exerted myself, never did anything. But I knew if I ever got out of that bed, I was going to do something. And was there that kind of moment for you where you realized, you talked about other people, but you also said something where you made a decision, kind of, that, you know, the old Yogi Bear quote, when you get to the fork in the road, take it. You kind of sounded like you got to that point. And so kind of help people, if that's true. If it's not true, say, you know, I don't know what you're talking about, Mr. Mayor. You're on your own on this one. You're on the yellow brick road by yourself, brother. But go ahead. Just, I mean, that there was a moment that you may have kind of
Yes, there actually was a moment, because if it was for that moment, I wouldn't be here talking to you. I was an agoraphobic. I left the house. I suffered from extreme anxiety. And just being out in public was very difficult for me. Loud noises, stressful situations, and being a young person, having that define you was not what I wanted to be. And I kind of had a inner aha, basically saying, you know what, I could change this. I used my faith, and I used a lot of personal struggle and confliction to say the fact that I was given a second chance. You know, I died in the line of duty and was brought back for a reason. So that made my decision. I'm here, and now I'm competing, and I'm hoping to inspire other people, especially the public. My wife has been a great support. We've been married for 2 years now, and it's been a true blessing for me, because I probably would never have gotten married. I don't know if I probably will still be alive, depending on the situation, if I didn't turn.
I've never heard it that way, but I think not the wife part, no, but almost the calling it like kind of a rebirth. Because when I do commencement, I try to talk to kids about when I was sitting in the hospital bed. I had 3 roommates die. And there's a moment, and it's not a flip of the switch, but and as you said, it's kind of like an inner come to Jesus moment.
Yes, it was.
And like you could either wallow in your pain and everything else, or decide something else about your life and your existence. And then there's a strength. I mean, do you see that?
Oh yeah. When I was during that time period, I hated God, and why did he bring me back this way? But then as time passed and life was passing me by, that was when
you want to introduce,
sure.
So everybody hears the noise, so you might as well introduce them. We have a third guest here with us.
Yes, my service dog, Radar. He just recently passed from Haven.
Oh, cool.
Hounds and Vets Empowered now. So
he's a black, is it
black lab?
Black lab.
Black Labrador Retriever.
Yeah. So, are we going for gold?
Nothing less.
Nothing less. I love you, man. Okay. What's your favorite of the 4 that you can compete in?
That one's a tough one. I love cycling because it's fun and that adrenaline
What's the
rush.
distance you guys are doing?
Is it 15K? Yeah, 15K. So that's just, for me, that's just all out.
Who's the other person on the bike with you?
I have a pilot. His name is Jess. He's a local cyclist where I'm from in Wisconsin.
No, you know what? I loved you, and then you had to put some salt in the wound, okay? Everybody doesn't know this, so well, why don't you tell the story about how we became football friends and enemies?
Frenemies.
Frenemies.
Our frenemanship started 2004. I was in the hospital. They had a special ward for the guys who came back, who were medevaced out of the Iraq, Baghdad Surgical Hospital.
And I was
Actually, I have to admit, my Wisconsin representative knew I was there, but obviously he came from Illinois to show his support. And
he being me.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, to my left. And
I'm always on your left, brother.
that makes me right. So I was blinded. My face is all bandaged up. My mouth was wired shut, so I couldn't talk. My tongue was sutured because I bit it off due to the concussion. And I had to literally visualize my brain and write things on a piece of paper. And so Mr. Mayor and his entourage came into our room. He introduced himself. And of course, I mentioned I'm from Wisconsin, and he said he wouldn't hold it against me. Mm-hmm. Hope that's still true.
No, of course.
And we were just basically chatting. He asked how I was, if my treatments were right. I've been taking care of me, offered his support. Mm-hmm. And we had a conversation about sports. And at first the conversation was like, oh, you come to Chicago, I'll get you hooked up with baseball tickets if I'm a baseball fan. I was like, yeah, but I'm more of a football fan. And then he asked, my favorite team was, and I said the Packers.
There was a very pregnant moment silence there.
Yeah. So thus came the promise, oh yeah, just call my office and we'll discuss getting you some Packer Bears tickets over at Soldier Field, take you out for a great time. Contact the office a couple times and no response. And I kind of gave up until, when was it, like a couple months ago when I met Vic, who said, I told him the story of how we met. And then he's like, oh, I got you, buddy. And then, now here we are. The animosity may be thick, but we're still.
We talked to a guy that's got a company here, but also is up in Massachusetts, S.C. Johnson. We're going to take care of those Packer tickets for you. Okay?
Awesome.
I won't be near the handoff, but he will be. So I remember coming to see you. So you give me the ratings on how you feel like you best compete. So bike is number one.
Bike is number one.
Archery?
Archery is right up there. I find archery very therapeutic. Mm-hmm. It has been one of the sports where I can actually turn off all my stresses, let myself concentrate on one focus point and moment, and just learn to breathe and relax. It's kind of like, almost like a Zen moment doing archery, because it's just you, the bow, and the target.
That sounds, so you and I have talked before, so I love fly fishing. And if you say Rahm Emanuel, sport, fly fishing does not come up, okay? You would not see based on temperament. But it's exactly that. You in the water, a rod, a fly, and the fish that may or may not get it. And it's just, there is a Zen mode of just a very isolated, task-orientated, focused accomplishment. So,
exactly the same. I hope everybody finds something in their life that
don't
does
you think that?
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier the sense of being on a team, which is why you like the Warrior Games.
That's right.
Were you? I don't think I ever. Were you thinking of the armed forces as a career?
Yes. Finished my degree in criminal justice while I was enlisted. Mm-hmm. I was hoping for selection into the officer program and doing my 20 or 20 plus, depending, and making my career further with the military police in the civilian sector with one of the FBI, CIA, DEA, ATF agencies. That was like my career plan. And
so you see your teammates now on the U.S. team as the new team that you got?
Yes, it's
the new kind of your brothers.
Yeah, it's a true brotherhood and sisterhood for all of us, because we all share the same blood, the same mud, all been through some type of struggle or are fighting some type of battle. And it's that unspoken lateral playing field that we all share, which makes us bond a lot closer because we know the struggles that somebody's going through to help them through, to assist them through. And for me, immediately during my first camp, I made several life friends, not even realizing it. That's how close all of us get.
What drives you?
What drives me? Personal sense of success, making my family proud. You know, my wife, she definitely loves watching me compete and to be at my best. That helps me, knowing that I have her and my family and friends. That's what drives me.
How did you guys meet?
We met on eHarmony.
eHarmony, so it works.
Yeah, it worked for us. I mean, we haven't had any real fights. We are same mental.
Oh, well, how long have you been married?
2 years.
Give it time. Oh, you're still in love. Don't worry. No, that's fabulous. Congratulations. So it does work.
It did work. It does work. I felt, for me, obviously not leaving the house, being unable to drive, just kind of just like, you know what, my last resort, I'm gonna lay it out there, and just relying on, you know, whatever will happen to be a right woman for me. And when we first were talking, I told her my story. I told her I went about my goals, and she was into that. And here we are today.
Do you ever go back and visit soldiers? It's too hard?
Yeah, I have yet to do that.
I understand.
Yeah, I always, when I was in the hospital, I always thought, you know, eventually someday go back to Bethesda and Walter Reed to kind of, in a way, share my pain through story with them, to let them know that there is a shining light at the end of the tunnel. And whenever it's right for them, I hope they make the right decision.
That's you know, it's interesting. So part of my job as mayor, I go visit the kids around the holidays at the Children's Hospital, Children's Memorial. When I was sick and laid up, I was in Children's Memorial for the 7 weeks, as I said. I get choked up all the time, and it's hard. Going back, I mean, you're there to help them, and you know, and so on and so forth. But there's always a jolt and stuff like that. So, I think it's impressive what you've done.
I just got started.
I know, no, but I just, I mean, if I'm allowed to comment, I mean, not be defined by anything else, but then you're looking forward to compete, not just competing, but writing a new chapter. I think that's really impressive, what you're doing. Now, you thought you were going to do career and move totally on into the up the ladder.
Correct.
Did you find yourself becoming more religious through this experience? How would you define yourself? Would you define yourself in the service, pre the service, as a religious observant person, and then, or do you find yourself now a more spiritual person of religion? I mean, has that become more important to your life?
Before military, I was raised in the church, grew up in the church, volunteered in the church until my later high school years, because I was doing high school, a job, and then I was actually attending the University of Milwaukee. You know, overachiever. And I guess a little bit of it was just kind of going away from the church. During my military career, I was more a man of faith, but still, you know, adapting to my surroundings and everything like that. So like my faith was tucked away a lot, but I still knew religiously my morals. And then after I got injured, that's when it turned to like hatred towards God, and I totally was like the flip side of my faith. You know, I deep down, I know how I was raised and what I believe in, but when you're in a situation like that, it's hard to hold on to that. And after the years went by, that hatred seemed to dissipate. It turned into like grief, depression, regret. And then I think being a religious person during that phase, the regrets, the grieving, that's when you actually will fall back into your faith in Christ. And because you're just so vulnerable. You're just, now it's not like blaming, it's more like why and what do I need to do? And then I started going back to church, my old church, and getting back into that, and it definitely renewed my spirit. I got baptized again, and it just helped me just say, God put me here for a reason. I got a second chance. Not many people get a second chance, and I'm going to use that to inspire others. I'm not going to preach, but I use my example to others, and then also with my family, and when we do have children, have that, bring them up to know that it works.
Right. Would you recommend, as somebody's thinking about the armed forces, would you still recommend that they go into the armed forces, join and enlist?
Without a doubt.
That's great. I mean, obviously you have a preference for the Army. I joke around here because we had an alderman who's a Marine. I always say when we have our Veterans Day and Memorial Day, it's a Marine event in which the other branches of the armed services are allowed to participate.
Well, this is the Navy event.
Yeah, I know.
Everybody else is guests.
Right, this is a Navy-run event. We were here, I think about a month ago, on the last preparations for it. You guys are people excited not doing it on a base, doing it in a Soldier Field? Is that a big deal for all the athletes?
These athletes.
To be in that kind of arena, that big deal?
They are still awestruck. A lot of these are their first time. So this is going to be a great experience for their first Warrior Games to have the honor of not only serving your country, but also being in front of the people that you swore an oath to actually cheer you on and support you. Because that's going to be truly amazing feeling for not only those spectating, and for those who are competing also.
Now, the way the games work, my understanding is that each year a different branch of the armed services kind of hosts them.
Yes.
For all members of the armed services, meaning if this year the Navy's got it.
Yes.
But it's not just former members of the Navy that are participating, it's all the branches.
I think it's
well, the city's excited about it, you should know that.
Yeah, I hope they come out and
No,
watch
they'll be,
us.
yeah, they will. We got different places all over the city, everything like that. I think the weather for the games is going to be actually nice. Today it's a little drizzly and dark, and I think it's going to flip a switch, perfect, which may be symbolic for the games and stuff like that.
Oh, it's going to be great.
You had to come all the way to Chicago to get the renewed on the ticket charge, man.
So worth it.
Yeah. So give me your practice routine for the sports. How do you train?
For me, for cycling, it's a little more difficult because I can't cycle alone. So I do a lot of indoor training, just watching Netflix or TV or a Packer game, depending. And I just recently got a grant from the VA. The spinal cord injury gave me a grant for $22,000 to build a custom tandem bike. And so by having that now and a pilot that's willing and motivated to ride, we've been actually getting out a lot more. He's been able to take me outdoors, which is a big deal. And archery I have is basically a bale set up in my garage, and for my back porch, just flinging arrows into the garage.
Now, do you need any sound or something like that? How does that work for getting your target on?
Oh, it's kind of interesting for archery. It's a little more intricate.
Okay.
I'll be completely blindfolded. They have an adaptive sight, which is a camera tripod with an archery sight that has a tactile, I would say, post on there. So when I draw my bow back, I put my bow hand against that tactile post, and my wife behind me will be giving me instructions on how to level the bow out.
Oh, well, if that's the case, don't worry. You guys will definitely start to fight. That was just a free shot. I apologize. But go ahead. Okay.
Nah, no problem. We were all smiles, so I lost 3 arrows last night.
All right, so we did archery, biking. Give me the other two sports.
Track. Track's a little different because it's I'll be running with a guide, and we're basically connected by a tether. And my guide just literally runs with me at my pace. And having a guide is kind of nice because they can actually motivate you through the race, let me know I'm almost there, so I know when to kick it up. And
It's hard to
put-
imagine, given that you said earlier that you were overweight. It's hard to imagine, given that now you're doing all that you're saying that you're doing. That's a real inspiration. You should know that.
Yeah, that's the power of faith, and believe in yourself. I believe if you can believe yourself, all things are possible.
Well, look, I don't want to get in your way, so I want you to come back.
All right.
All right? I want to say congratulations. I want you to thank you for doing this. This is Chicago Stories, and you're a real inspiration.
It's my honor and pleasure.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
You have been listening to Chicago Stories, a new podcast from City Hall featuring the stories of everyday Chicagoans as told to Mayor Rahm Emanuel.